Yeah, it just told me it's been live streamed. I think you are live.
You'll need to turn your phone volume down.
My phone volume.
Yes, because it's picking up the bounce back.
This volume. My input volume.
Ye-
Let's see.
Oh, I need to turn it off on my phone too, or on my computer. Turn the Facebook Live on your computer. It's got to go off. There we go. Now let's see. We'll go back to Zoom. Okay. Solid. Solid. All right. Checking. Testing. You here?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Sound good
All
on
right.
your end?
Yes, sir. Let me turn up the volume just a little bit. Let me go over here and share this now to the group. If I can
Well,
find it.
we're in uncharted territory right now, I think.
Say again.
We're in uncharted territory.
Oh Lord. Yeah, it's both new, a little new here, but I think it'll be all right.
We'll get through.
Okay, those are maxed out. Let's get some people logged in. Let's go over here. Nice. Cool. Let's have this set up wherever, right here. All right, everyone, welcome. Another episode. Well, I shouldn't say another episode, but it really is another episode of the Court Reporter. Unfortunately, back in May, Libsyn, the podcasting situation with them, they got rid of their in-house studio. So what that means for you guys is pretty much nothing. But for me, it means that when I was recording podcasting, I would record everything right on through, and then they have an in-app or in-house studio on their website that allowed me to go back through and edit things and add those features, the cool sound effects, um, and other um, I guess things to the repertoire of the podcast. And sadly, they discontinued that function. So that's no longer there. So I'm still able to record on that platform through Libsyn. The only sad part is when I record, that's it. That's what you get. There's no editing. It's raw footage. And then I'm not allowed to add any of the special effects or any of the special features. So it really hurts in my way, considering that I poured a lot of time and effort in learning that studio and software. And then the last one, I used Audacity to just kind of throw something out there for you guys, and it was just an absolute disaster. So, shifting to the new phase of the Court Reporter, as you see. We'll try these new Facebook Live podcasts through Zoom. I think this could work better in a sense that you have a more face-to-face podcasting episode. You have a more raw footage in a sense that you're live with somebody and you can interact with people on questions and um, really get out there. It's a little bit out of the comfort zone, a little bit out of things. So definitely we'll have to see how this goes in the future. But today, without further ado, we have a kind of anticipated podcast, I would say. I know it's been in the works, just like everything else has been. Um, but we are joined today by NHPA presidential candidate Ben Webb. Ben is here letting us know and giving us a more sense of direction for his plan. Ben contacted me about the potential use of this podcast in a sense to help get his word out, spread his message on what the future of his endeavors are for the NHPA. And Ben, I've known Ben since I think the first time I met you was in Knoxville.
2012. 2012,
20,
yeah.
2012. in Tennessee, and it's just been a rivalry ever since. Growing older, it's been a little bit more of a friendship, but definitely it has been a very good ride. Ben, welcome to the Court Reporter, and start out by just telling us a little bit of your background, telling us, how you got into this game, and not necessarily how you got involved at the national level just yet, but kind of where you began, where your roots were in horseshoe pitching.
All right. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for having me on. What you're doing here with the Court Reporter, it's a great thing for our sport. When I founded, not to veer off your question, but when I founded Talking Horseshoes years ago, this was really the direction I wanted to see it go. But for whatever reason, and we could get into those later, that didn't work out. But now you're doing it, and you're filling a big void that needs to be filled. So I really appreciate you doing this and picking up that ball and just running with it even when you don't have the full backing that you should have.
Thank you.
But to get into how I got started, so I've been playing horseshoes since I guess I was nine. I think I was 9 years old, 2006. My father was a park director for the Evans County Parks and Recreation Department, and they built some courts in Collegiate, Kentucky. They was 12 outdoor courts we started with originally, and I pitched my first tournament in 2006. We really started getting heavy into it in 2007, 2008. I started terribly. I was a one ringer junior, one ringer tournament. And, I progressed on my own up until about 2011. And that's where Charlie Meredith really entered the scene. Charlie, for those that know Charlie, was in the late 80s, early 90s, was the best men's pitcher in Kentucky, and he just so happened to be 10 minutes from my house and close to Cleveland. So, they got with the judge in Cleveland, and we have now, since 2011, 13 beautiful covered courts in Cleveland. And once Charlie started working with me, I really progressed in 2012 and 13 to the world tournament scene where I was in those 60s, 70s, even 80s at times percent range. So I've really feel like I've played at every level, and I had to relearn the game when I went to 40 foot. I fell all the way down into the
Facts.
30s again. So,
Facts.
but it's been for me really a lifelong thing. Almost 20 years now been involved in this thing. So.
Nice. And, fast forward to present day, here you are, sitting member of the National Horseshoe Pitcher Association Council team, a candidate for the upcoming election, for president. And today, this is just a impromptu Q&A sesh, I guess, or really just to inform the members. There's not been a clear um, communicative pattern from the top in past history. And this is just kind of something that we should have for the
Right.
NHPA is, open communications, and something that you came forward and said, let me get my plan out there, let me know my members. Sadly, um, social media is used incorrectly at times, but if used correctly, social media can be a big influence and a big factor in things. And that can be, I can speak to that directly from working with the Southern California Horseshoe Pitchers Association as a second vice president. We started up an Instagram page and a TikTok page, and using those things correctly, posting, this is kind of getting off topic, but it rounds it out. If we get those comments from those people who we may not have hit before. And it's kind of interesting too, you hear people talk, they comment or say something, like, oh, well, you guys are 5 minutes from my house. I'm going to come on down. And then they come down and now look, they're a member. One is better than none
Right.
in
And
that sense.
I've said many times to your point, social media is the greatest and worst tool we've ever created.
Hmm.
Within seconds, you can type something out and put it out, and you reach millions of people instantly. But also you can misinform millions of people instantly if you use it incorrectly. So it's very important. It's very important that we use it correctly.
Exactly. Ben, you had emailed me it was a pretty lengthy document, but it was several conglomerations put together, and taking the time to read over that for this podcast episode was very interesting. Um, I'm just going to get right into it. We've got several people listening so far, but nobody has commented any questions. I want to let you guys know that this is an open forum. Comment your questions, and once we see them, I have the live pulled up here. We'll definitely get to those once we have answered this question. I wanted to treat this similar to kind of like a debate. However, other said candidates did not respond to my email that I had put out there. So I guess in a sense, this is just a marketing campaign for you, Ben. So it works out really well.
Right, right.
So on your document, you had gave some really good insight. And the first thing that you say is the NHPA is at a critical point.
Very.
And my question to you is, why do you think we're at a critical point at this time?
Well, we're at that point, kind of like you said, when you mentioned you did try to get some other candidates involved here. We're at a direction, we're at a point now where we can either work together and go forward or continue to work against each other. What I mean by that is the council in recent years and even going back, they haven't always informed the membership like they should. They haven't always armed them with the tools of success that they should have armed them with. And we're at while we're at such a critical point is because on that chart you'd see in 2004 we had north of 12,000 members. Now today we're just north of 6,000 members. And if we slide any further than that, I really think that in 3 years we may be too far gone to save the thing. So, that's why I felt like now is this may be the most critical election in history. We either need to go forward or we're going to stay the course into destruction, which we've been going on for several years.
Sure. And and you talk about like I said, being critical, but what makes it more critical than ever? I know you hit on that just a little bit, but you talk communication, other things like that, but why are we at the most critical point? It was almost like a sense of urgency when I read it. It was a sense of desperation to where we have to act now or there's nothing. Is that kind of how you're feeling?
Right, right. And the reason I say that is, it's a whole lot easier to promote when you have more people. So the less you get, the harder it will be to promote. And as things get easier with other options for people to do, like cornhole and whatnot, we lose more people to those. As they build their following, we'll lose ours. Now, I think we can work hand in hand with them at some point. But the reason it's so critical is once that membership dips to a certain level, our world tournament participation, which is our marquee event, it's already declining. So at some point, we're not going to have the hosts' interest as we have had in years past because they're not getting the return on their investment. We lose the world tournament because we lost all the members. If we lose all the members, we don't have a world tournament. So everything worked. There's really several pillars to success. The world tournament is it's a small portion, but a big portion at the same time. I've been telling people recently, Major League Baseball they have the World Series, right? You
Hmm.
don't have a World Series without the season. If we've neglected the season for so long, if we lose all those members and we don't have a world tournament, then what are we doing, right?
Sure.
And we've got to the point where if you look at the history, we grew, then we started declining. We're following the same trend just on two separate sides of the hill. So we have to turn and go back up the hill at this point.
Hmm. And being such a critical, pivotal moment, do you think that one wrong step and it's done? Are we on
Well,
thin ice, or are we able to maybe make a mistake but then retry a different avenue?
Well, I think that you're always going to have to make mistakes to learn. You never learn anything if you don't make a mistake. And
Hmm.
I've made my share of mistakes over the years, as have you and everyone watching here.
Sure.
But you know, we're at a point where we can make those mistakes now. But if we continue to make the same, we're making the same mistakes over and over again for the last 20 years. If we continue down that road, and don't start learning to progress, there won't be a chance at that. And so to answer your question, yes, I think that we can make a few more mistakes, but I think that the trial and error period is closing and closing very quickly.
Gotcha. And we talk, in your chart, you have the numbers laid out pretty solidified. A decline in members since for the last 20 years. You
Right.
know, why how are we seeing that trend going for the future if we just continue?
If we continue the direction we're currently going,
Mm-hmm.
then we'll continue to decline as we have. I've heard this decline for 20 years blamed on it's blamed on people are aging out, people are dying out. It's been blamed on cornhole. It's been blamed on, there's not enough money. It's been blamed on almost everything. And, you know, if we keep going we're not doing it. The problem is with the direction we're going, we're not doing anything to fix the problem. From a council standpoint, I see it firsthand, the council aims at the world tournament. That's
Mm-hmm.
the target. We're going to hit the target. And for the last 20 years, they've ran, for all intents and purposes, a phenomenal world tournament. But the
Mm-hmm.
world tournament is only 10% of the membership that attend that. So what do the other 90% of the members get for their membership dollars? I mean, they get a patch.
Mm-hmm.
They get to pitch in thousands of events if they want to. There's thousands of sanctioned events a year, but we don't promote those things as we should.
Mm-hmm.
It's so what I'm trying to say here is that, we have to go in the direction of the 90, not the 10. Now we want to take care of the 10, but we got
Mm-hmm.
to take care of the other 90.
Sure. Moving right along. So far, no questions have come in. It looks like we got a good amount of people watching still. I did have one comment sent to my personal page. The podcast is up and running. I can't seem to see anything. I clicked and joined. Um, I'm not sure. I mean, everybody here is can see Max, Corey, Tim. Um, are you guys are able to see okay? Give me a thumbs up or
That's
say
my
all
Corey,
good.
isn't it? Is that
Yeah, yeah, you're Corey.
that's my Corey. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so I think that I'm not really sure. Okay, cool. Everybody gave a thumbs up. Okay, cool. Thank you guys.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
Moving right along, reading through your documents, you talk about a cracked foundation. You talk about the NHPA's foundation being cracked. So, my question would be is how is our current foundation cracked, as you say, and how does your business experiences and successes heal the crack and move us forward?
Right. So that's a great question. So, me and Josh Olson, fifth vice president, we talked quite a bit. And after just about a month on the council, I told Josh that, I didn't realize that the NHPA was fundamentally broken from a foundation standpoint. And in my letter, I don't want to get too religious with things, but I do say in my letter that I come from a church background. And, there's a parable that Jesus used about building a house, and they said a man would build a house in the sand that would surely fall, but the man who built the house on the rock that house would stand the test of time. So, but the foundation has to be rock solid, or you can't build a house from it. The first thing they do before they pour the concrete of your house is they put the rebar in. They level the foundation, they put the rebar in, then they pour the concrete, then they build a beautiful home from that. But the foundation is the most important. So why it's the most important is that if you don't have that, you can't build off of it. And the problem with our foundation is were you to go through any process, say our medical exemption process, our grievance process, those should be standardized across the board to streamline those things. Your grievance process right now is you just tell somebody you're upset, and then they start looking into it. You give them information. There's not a form you fill out. Any successful business in the world is pretty standard across the board. So what I've been fortunate to do over the years is, I was big on like Kaizen and 5S. and that's there's several pillars of that. One of those is set in order, standardized things like that. But a lot of what I do now is I'll write certain systems, processes, and implement those things, and that makes it not only easy to train and bring in new people, but it makes for a consistent experience across the board. And that's just what we've never had. You go over here and it's one way, you go over there and it's that way. And you build off your foundation, which is partially your rules and bylaws. We can't everybody plays by the same rules. You don't go to Kentucky and play by different rules than you play by in Tennessee. Now you may play different formats of the game, but your baseline rules have to be consistent. Your processes for filing grievances or medical exemptions, those things have to be consistent. And only once you do that, and let me get on a tangent here. Your sponsorship process needs to be consistent. I challenge you now, anybody, to go to the NHPA website and click on sponsorship information. You'll find a blank form. If I'm Gatorade and I go to our NHPA website and I click on that, I want to see something that tells me how I can support the NHPA and get my message out through our platform.
Sure. And, how do we heal the cracked foundation?
Okay, so how you do that? Sorry, I kind of varied there. Is you
That's okay.
basically hit the big reset on the NHPA. You go back to the base level. Okay, what is each council member doing? What are they doing now, and are they doing it successfully? What is each director doing? Are they effective? What are your committees doing? Are they effective? You set the standards for them first of all, because that's your core. If they're not working toward the common goal, what are you doing? Once you get them set in order, then you can start to work on all your other processes like your promotion, your distribution, your forms. Like I said, I'm a big proponent of forms. You get those, you got to centralize the information from our perspective. When I say cracked foundation, like your promotion, we've always told people bring a friend. That doesn't work. We should have base level promotional tools to give to the charters, and those sponsorship dollars, we kick those back to the charters through through the promotional tools to help them build their charters. Those are all foundational things.
And so I guess, in a sense, you're looking at it from a base level
Operations,
build up,
yeah,
as
it's
opposed to how do we attack from the top and run it down.
right. It's essentially what is wrong with the operations of the NHPA that's causing us to go down this hill. And,
Sure.
that's very hard to do. I'd
Mm-hmm.
say some of our council members may listen to this and they may not like what they're hearing. That's okay. We can talk about
Sure.
that later. But, what can, if I ever wanted to fix a problem, the first thing I do is what can I do and how
Mm-hmm.
can I do that better? If I'm doing a thing, how can I do that better? Like Jerry Smith gave me the leagues. Jerry, very intelligent, very good trainer.
Mm-hmm.
Certain things worked for him, didn't work for me. We go toward the same process, but we go toward the same goal, but we just take slightly different roads to get there. But the
Mm-hmm.
problem is we're not even on the road right now. We're just going toward the world
Sure.
tournament. These other roads
Sure.
are going untraveled.
Sure. So it's more, attacking the foundation, rebuilding that structure as opposed to what's the big problem solver right off the top. Boom,
Right.
fix it, instant heal. So in your plan here, it's a great tool, and once the delegates get this and people can see it, it's not just a quick fix. It's nothing real quick.
No.
It's about it's a 3-year layout of what you expect to see done in these next 3 years, and it starts with you know your first 90-day plan. You made some pretty bold statements. You'll have your phase 2 done in 90 days. Boom, be done with
We're
it
in phase 2 in 90 days.
in 90 days. Boom, it's done. And then you talk about phase 3 is 12 to 18 months, and it's this multi level, as you called it, multi-tiered platform of where we are now and where we need to go. It's not a let me let me try to do this and let me just hope for everything. And, God rest his soul, the great and the late Gary Roberts always said, if you're going to take over an office position, you need to do something about it. You cannot be the same, and you need to keep moving forward, because if we do the same thing, we're just another officer. We have to keep going. Um, let's take a question here that somebody posted. It says, it's from Harold Morgan. He says, how do we address the lower membership of junior cadets over the years?
The lower membership of junior cadets over the years. How do we address that?
Mhm.
Okay, so right now, as I look at, and as the youth director, this is a very big challenge. And I suggested some ideas to someone. They said, "Well, why don't you do them now?" You don't really have the, as well as I do, Dalton. You as the youth director, you have no authority to do those things unless the president says it's okay. And a lot of times, and Gary, when Gary appointed me as the youth director, he said that when he was growing up, you know, juniors were just something to get them out of the way. We had
Mhm.
never, the NHPA has never, if we get real honest about it, outside of the world tournament, we've not properly promoted to the youth. Further than that, we've pushed those who've had success promoting to the youth away.
Mhm.
You're having success. We don't like that. So the answer
Sure.
to his question is there are people across the country who have had success targeting the
Mm.
youth. We bring those people in and we use those ideas and we implement things that, that's one thing that if it's widespread, will it fix the problem entirely? Probably not, but it'll really help. And another problem that we have with our youth is our retention. Our youth retention is terrible. We
Mm.
look back, like we look back at 2000. Let me think. Let's think 2015. In our class, it was me and Tyler. We still pitched. Hayden, he no longer pitches. Gunner no longer pitches. Brandon Pearl no longer pitches. So I think we retained two, maybe three out of. We'll count Travis. Slews is back now, and just not to derail, but I greatly appreciate Travis Slews and everything he done for our country. He veered outside of horseshoes to go into the military, and that's a very honorable thing to do, and I really
Mhm.
appreciate him doing that for us.
And Hayden.
Yeah, Hayden did too.
Hayden as
Don't want
well.
to forget about him.
Um, so, Carol, hopefully that answers your question. Any follow-up questions, let us know. Um, you know, as we progress through this multi-level, multi-tier, multi-year plan, you talk about multi-level sponsorships. You talk about um gaining those low, I don't want to say low class, but starting out with those lower level sponsors and building up to a bigger
Right.
potential. NHPA was fortunate enough to have a trophy sponsor, Gillette Electric, up in
Yes.
Willows, California. Covered the trophies, got the thing on there, and we do have some members who are still doing that trophy sponsor and stuff. But, big picture, Ben, how do we take, a small local electric company in Northern California to, you know, Gatorade? How do
Right.
we go from, building all these little sponsors around us, and how do we band together all those, and how do we move up to the next ladder? But answer that, because I could keep going.
Right. So essentially, what we do wrong right now, it goes back to what do we do wrong. So if you look
Hmm.
at our sponsored if you look at our current sponsorship model, we're just this close to getting Camping World, but
Hmm.
we're not ever going to get Camping World for $2,500. What do we when if I'm a sponsor, what can the NHPA offer me that's worth my money? Right. And right now, there's not a thing that the NHPA can offer me worth $2,500 unless I'm in the host city. And I still need to be a pretty sizable company to do that. But if I come to you and you own Dalton's Pop Tarts, and I ask you for $250 to put a sign behind the court uh, at the World Tournament, especially if you mail your product, you'll probably do that.
Sure.
Most likely. And we could hang signs behind every court at the World Tournament for $250, make a ton of money doing that. And but no, we're too busy. We're too busy trying to chop the tree down that we're not even grabbing the low hanging fruit. So you
Hmm.
start right there at those small sponsorships, and that's a big reason, why I haven't the plan in its entirety, 60 something pages at this point.
Hmm.
But we don't want to tier those smaller sponsorships on the way up. We want to retain those and even work. We'll take them with us. But at some point, once you grow, and let's say we got 600 people coming to the World Tournament this year, and we offered those for 250. When we get to 1,800 people at the World Tournament, that sponsorship's worth more.
Hmm.
That's more eyes on that product. So, and your membership grows. So what you do with your sponsorship dollars, you kick those back into the charters. You give them the tools, you give them the funds to promote themselves, and that grows your membership. So next year, when you go to your sponsor and you say, I have 10,000 members, a sponsorship with you is more valuable. So as
Sure.
you grow, Gatorade's not interested in us right now. When you get to 25,000 members with 3,000 people coming to the World Tournament and you want to put their logo on the side of your truck and set it out by the highway as a billboard for a year, they probably would give us $50,000. So that's a pretty good deal.
Hmm.
But it's just not right now. We're too small to be targeting what we're targeting right now. So we
Hmm.
have to climb the ladder, and we can't start climbing the ladder at the third rung.
Hmm. And it takes what, a committee in the area to get those local sponsors to start it out for the year and then just build from there.
Well, one idea that I've had, and I've kind of tossed this around, you know, I don't know that it would hurt for the NHPA. This is just an idea, keep in mind, but what would it hurt for the NHPA to hire someone to obtain their sponsorships for them? Say you are this person, and say I'm going to give you 10% of every sponsorship you bring in. If you bring in $50,000, you made $5,000. If that, and if you didn't bring in anything, it didn't cost us anything. So but I don't know that a committee works. We've had the committee for several years. We don't have any external sponsors right now. So
Hmm.
either we're running that committee wrong, or the committee doesn't work, one or the other. Could be a
Sure.
combination of both. But you need somebody to do the boots on the ground in the World Tournament host city if that's where you're targeting your sponsors, especially for that tournament, a couple of times a year at least, to go around and promote that tournament and obtain them sponsorships. I've done it locally. I walked into a business to sell a sign, $150, and we can sell those all day, but somebody has to go there to do that. That's
Sure.
much more efficient than the alternative, of how we spend our time.
Hmm. You know, it's I just lost my forget that.
Just went
Um
blank.
um okay, so back to the live feed. I had a message direct to me again, asking how you get on the list to comment. Um just comment on the live feed here. Just comment your question as the previous gentleman did, and we'll read it. So far no questions come in, so
And if
that must be a good
if they
thing.
have a comment and they don't want anybody to know their name, they can send that to you as well. We don't mind that.
Sure. If
I
you private
another
comment.
reason I wanted to do this, I'm not hiding from anything. We did Dalton. You sent me no questions. I have no idea what you're going to ask.
Mm-mm.
I'm sitting here. There's nothing in front of me. So, uh,
No. Um, yeah, so if you want to ask a private question, you don't want your name out there, definitely you can inbox me. Hopefully, I'll see that. I've been pretty good keeping an eyeball on that there. You know, Ben, moving to the next phase, um, I don't want to say the next phase, but to the next section of your documents, you talk about um things that need to be fixed and things that need to be protected. You had mentioned that the things that we need to protect, or I guess, you as president, are the NHPF, which is
right.
the National Horseshoe Pitchers Foundation. You mentioned the Quail Ridge Horseshoe Club. You mentioned the youth. You mentioned our rules and bylaws, and you mentioned integrity and morale. All things that encompass things we need to protect. Now, out of those, hit highlights on them if you would like to. And why are they things we need to protect? Again, whenever you opened up your letter, you talked about the critical point and there was a sense of urgency. I also felt that here, um in this section too, when you were wording it through, and then you say here are things that we need to protect, and you listed boom, 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 boom. Why is there a need for protection?
Right. But I had this conversation with someone actually earlier, the Bible will talk about the old paths, you protect those paths, but that don't mean they don't lead in another direction. The NHPF, you know, there's always been talks about, should we help them, should we not? There has to be a partnership there. They've been a very important part of to their mission, preserving the history of the sport, kind of hand in hand with Quail Ridge. Quail Ridge, if that club falls, in my opinion, as does our Hall of Fame, our Hall of Fame's right there in that building, and we've done, in my opinion, a poor job of supporting that club. I had that conversation with, I'll leave his name out of it, but while I was out there, why is there not a sign? I know there's a little sign on the side of the road, but if we had the sponsorship dollars, we could do much more to promote that site. That site is in the heart. You might as well say the heart of America. It's right outside of St. Louis. So it's very important that we protect them, the youth. You know, the youth. If I was president, and as long as I'm on the council, the youth will never ever period be kicked to the wayside. The youth, in my opinion, the youth is the future of the sport. You don't have the youth, you don't have anything, and that's why we've seen this decline. We've not brought them young people in and protected them as we should. We've just, hey, yeah, we'll let them pitch a little, and let them go. On the rules and bylaws, that goes back to your foundation. At the core of any association is your rules and bylaws, and you're only as strong as those. Now, I like some of them. There's some of them I don't like, but I had a conversation with another gentleman in South Carolina. The way our rules and bylaws process is if you propose a rule and you get it by the committee, and then get it on the ballot and convince a majority of 2/3 majority of people to agree with you, it'll be a rule. It don't matter what it is. You can outlaw yellow shirts, if you can convince enough people to do that. But at the end of the day, those were the voted on, agreed upon rules. Everybody should be able to access them. You should never hide your bylaws from anyone. And ours are prominently displayed on the website, but they should always be updated and we should always follow them consistently. And when we get down to integrity and morality, I think that was the last one on that list. If from your council has to tell you the truth. And sometimes that truth isn't good news, but we should also, integrity means doing the right thing when nobody's looking, right? I shouldn't be over here making a deal with this guy or making a deal with that guy. If I tell you something, that's the way it is. That's the way I view it. I won't, me and you, we've had our fair share of spats over the years, because, you had one strong opinion and I had another one, but you always
Sure,
knew where I was on any issue you had presented,
sure.
and I didn't, run over here and tell, well, yeah, that dog. But morality, morality is a strong word. And
Hmm.
as I've been campaigning, I've heard so many stories of how people have been treated uh, in these roles, and I've not repeated any of those. Of course, I
Hmm.
wouldn't. They told me those in confidence. But when we lose a sense of how to treat people, we've lost everything. If we don't treat people right,
Sure.
at the end of the day, we're all horseshoe pitchers, and we all enjoy the game, the sport. We should treat each other well. If we can't do anything else at all, we should treat each other well. And anybody who doesn't treat someone well, they have no room in the association. If they're not looking out for the good, it's okay to be competitive, but you should never just despise your fellow horseshoe pitcher, or browbeat them, talk down to them. We have rules against that, and it's discouraging to hear that comes from all of us. But those that of all those things, that may be the most important because that's a very core human value that we got to
Hmm.
make sure we're sticking with, even if we're seeking an office or seeking a championship.
Hmm. And I can indirectly relate to, protection of the Quail Ridge Horseshoe Club. As a junior and a youth pitcher, living in Southern Illinois, we were right across from St. Louis, and I frequented the Hall of Fame. They had two tournaments a month. I was probably there once a month at the height of my junior pitching, but um, from then until now has been a drastic change. Um, it's just, you see all these people that have come and gone, and God rest their soul, most of them have went passed on, but a lot of them are still there, but they don't play anymore. I know whenever I was at the Hall of Fame tournament back in May, um, a few of the people, um, or I shouldn't say the Hall of Fame tournament, excuse me. I was there in January, and at our open tournament, and the people there that were running concessions and other things are help that they've had to bring in. It's hired help.
Right.
The clubs are it's declining. Yes, it's still probably the largest club in the United States, but it's all about, like, I like how you said, if the Quail Ridge Horseshoe Club goes, the Hall of Fame goes out the window as
Goes with
well.
it. Yeah.
Um, and it's kind of interesting, a little bit more on the Hall of Fame. Um, I just recently went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or they call it the
Oh,
Rock
really?
Hall in Cleveland, and um, I was with my friend Savannah, and I finally told her, I said, I've got to stop. I'm overwhelmed about how much stuff is in here. And, it's a six-level Hall of Fame. And it was just, the first level is all just everything, shoes, dresses, albums, notes, everything is in
Right.
that thing. How, this is an off-topic conversation, it's not in your plan, but it just kind of got me thinking, should we expand in our Hall of Fame in a sense that we need to update it to be something bigger?
Most definitely. And it's interesting you say that. Uh, Gary, I told someone this, Gary Roberts, it felt really good to have the responsibility of, I obtained his computer, to transfer that, and also working with Ryan Roberts to get those documents and historical files. And, but at the same time, on the flip side of that, it's very difficult for me, who had garnered that relationship with him, to kind of go through those things. But, one of the things that he had one of the things he had was so much stuff we couldn't haul in an SUV back to Kentucky. He had, and Robert Taylor in Kentucky has been working to scan and preserve those along with Casey Slews, but he just had so many documents and old editions of the digest. I mean, thousands of pictures, hundreds of pair of shoes, rare shoes, molds of shoes, stuff that you would never dream of him having. But he can't be. And I think he got a lot of that from Gary Klein, and of course Donnie and Adi. But anyways, so all that to say is there's so many of those things that need to be preserved, and our current space is it's kind of at its max capacity. So I would envision at some point, and I've kind of pitched this a little bit, but it'd be good to have a kind of a digital Hall of Fame. You still want the tangible physical assets at the Hall of Fame, but for all those documents and photographs to really be displayed properly, there should be some kind of website that we can, and it could branch off of us or the NHPF, but something that you can go at and you can look at all those old photos. We don't need to lose those to time. And it would be good to expand it physically. Now, I don't know if we can do that in its current location, but it would be good to expand the wealth of knowledge and history that's at that site, and just in general for our Hall of Fame. Because just, I told the gentleman I talked to earlier today, history is very important. If we don't know where we've been, how are we going to figure out where we're going? you know,
Exactly. Exactly. And branching out back to a question here, it says by Manuel Garcia. It says, what do you think about centralizing and keeping the world tournament in one location so it can cut the cost of traveling and searching for locations each year? I guess he's asking, what do you think about keeping the world tournament in one location every year as opposed to moving it around the country?
That's a really good point. Uh, a central location that that offers you a lot of things. It really depends on what experience you're looking for at the World Tournament. Are you looking to travel? Are you looking to go to a different place every year? Or are you just looking to play somewhere? You know, it's a possibility. A centralized location. Uh, I would like to see more central locations, not necessarily a centralized singular location, if that makes sense. So
Hmm.
something that's easily accessible to most people would be optimal. But the problem again is our current bidding process. You got to have the money. Money's number one, and then
Hmm.
space, money and space. If you don't have those two things, you don't have anything. But you know, if the world tournament was in one side and you had several regional tournaments that kind of floated around, that would be good. And that'd give you more opportunities to travel, kind of like the horseshoe tour does. They float around the city to city, and you have more opportunities. Another
Literally
thing,
float.
yeah, but they're literally floating this
We're
year.
floating literally this year.
but they we'll get into that in a second. But
Hmm.
the whole central location thing, it's a good idea, but is it attractive to the majority of those people that's participating in that tournament? I don't know about one single location, but a more centralized location, at least, the least we can do is try to avoid the same extreme several years in a row. Like the situation we're in currently, we're in the West 4 out of 5 years. Now the people
Mm,
in the West will say, well, you've been in the East, 4 out of 5 years.
true.
So a centralized location probably would satisfy more pitchers.
Hmm.
To answer
And
your
it's kind
question, short.
and who knows, maybe picking a site every year saying that's where the world tournament would be. I mean, if you think about it, it has its benefits like cornhole. There are world tournaments in Rock Hill, South Carolina every year. I can think of like the Iron Man. They go to St. George, Utah for their games. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's every year. Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, but or Seth Ohms, correct me. But it it's interesting to think about that. Every year that's where it's going to be at. And if they're a good host, it might be something interesting. Okay, backup question to the World Tournament by Hera Morgan. Do you think it would benefit members to have a smaller World Tournament? For instance, top 20 from each division are invited, not an open tournament for all members.
That I've kind of thrown this around just to myself. That I think about a lot of things when I'm home alone at night. Lights go out. It's dark. I don't have any power. But this is one of those things that you know it would be interesting if you had to qualify for the world tournament before that. Like, let's say you had a qualifying, like, let's say the average is, just using an example, let's say the average is locked at on January 1, and the top four go, then to qualify for the championships, you have to win or be in the top so many percentages of a regional tournament, and then you qualify for the world tournament. Would that be more beneficial to the world tournament experience? Probably not. A lot of people like that experience, and I personally like the experience of going to the world tournament. Would it be more beneficial to the championship pitchers? Probably, because they're there for 6 days. Uh, that's a thing that, you know, it depends on how we define the world tournament. For many years, I think a lot of people like this. For many years, the world tournament has been a everybody gets to play thing. But you look at every other sport, they're not like that. Not everybody gets to play in the NBA finals, But so if we ever did that, how do we create an equally uh, an equally exciting experience for those pitchers that don't get to play in the world tournament? And how do we entice them to come watch the championships? Because as we're seeing uh, in years past, a lot of people leave before the tournament's over. They're already there. You have to, if that were to happen where it's just the pitchers, just the championships, and you qualifying for them, you would need something that's equally exciting for the other members because they do need
Sure.
something. They
Maybe
deserve
like a
this
national championship
kind
or
of like a
something.
national championship. And I would argue that we could put them closer to host cities, or not host cities, tourist cities. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather, Kennewick's going to be great. It looks like a beautiful country out there. Michigan was a great example, though. He was very close to several of the Great Lakes. Me and Corey got to see two of them while we was up there, and I've never been further north than Greenville, before that, or
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo. I guess I
Sure.
would have went there. Buffalo,
Yeah.
Niagara Falls. You weren't far from
Mm-hmm.
that, but those are great locations.
Sure. Hopefully that answers your guys' questions here on the Facebook Live. Keep them coming. Thank you for the gentleman who commented privately. He just says that he's a Canadian player. They're having the same issues in Canada as well, and he agreed that we do need a more structured promotional and sponsorship package. Okay, so back to your we talked about things that you said you wanted to protect.
Let's touch
Now you
before we go on. Let's touch on it. You said one thing there I want to touch on for because we may
Sure.
not circle back. You know, I wanted to touch back on the host cities for the World Tournament. I've talked to several of them down through the last few years. We need to do a better job of helping those hosts. I've heard them say sometimes they're disappointed in the amount of support. For example, when you got to Lansing last year, they did as good a job as I've ever seen a host do promoting the tournament. But what did we do in their city to bring eyes to their venue and their event that they've paid to bring in? What did we do to bring the spectators in? We didn't do anything. We do a media day and it's great that we do that, but when we bring that meeting in, it's too late. We haven't been advertising the tournament in the whole city, but that's another thing that goes with the World Tournament experience. We could do much more in the whole city to to try to promote ourselves, and I think that's going to be critical, especially going forward. If we want to continue to get hosts, we need to be better at working with them.
sure. And anyway, the next talk about things you need to protect. Um, Now you talk about things that need fixed. And you had mentioned the foundation, it's correct. Our systems and processes, sponsorship, promotion, membership, branding, and marketing. Um, and you had, when you get this plan, delegates and members, um, it's listed out and it's explained out what, needs to what he's, talking about. But, touch on some of these, fixes. Um, why do we need to fix them, first of all? And, what are we going to do to make it fixed, I guess. So, how are we going to get to that point? Because, you talk about 90 days, boom, we'll be in phase three. And all of this kind of folds together to, the grand plan. But there's several questions that I could ask here, but talk about the fixes that you're talking, just talk about the fixes, what needs to be fixed.
So, I had to pull that up because that list that you referred to is pretty long. I want to make sure I got them in order. So, we've touched quite a bit on the foundation and the systems and processes. I did say that those were very core things. So I won't spend a whole lot more time talking about those. Somebody has a question about them for sure ask that. But sponsorship, I've touched on that. We need to totally redo that model of what that looks like. And that's what I would put in, immediately. We would start working toward that because right now, just to be blunt, we're broke. We don't have any money. The reason for that is we are a fully membership funded association with half the members that we had a decade and a half ago. That means you have half the operating funds that you had a decade and a half ago. And if you ever want to progress, you're going to have money because without money, somebody commented once and told me, well, you'll just kick it in the world tournament. Absolutely not. I would love to see the world tournament prize grow. And in my opinion, it does need to because it's been 4,000 for the champion for like 40 years now. But more than that is we need to use those sponsorship dollars to get into promotion. We are not, it costs $0 to do this. It costs $0 to go on, 5 miles down there to WBKO, where I've been on the news several times. talking about our events. It costs nothing to do those things. And a lot of newspapers will let you run it for free. But for the NHPA to really push forward a promotional initiative back to the charters, you have to first give them the tools, but you can't just give them the tools. You've got to give them the knowledge too. So what that looks like is, we can help. We should be able to give you signs and things like that. When was the last time you were able to purchase a NHPA T-shirt from an NHPA vendor outside of the World Tournament? That's another revenue opportunity we're missing out on. But you get the sponsorship, you kick them back into you got to have the sponsors' money to kick back in your promotional ideas. But what we fail to do yet again in the past is we give them a tool, like say we give them a sign. How do we use that sign? We've got to have a process. You get the sign and you put it here. You put it in this location. You don't face it inside your court, you face it outside your court. These are very basic things that they come easy, but to some people, a lot of people may not come easy to. We have to lay out a clear definition of how to use the tools you're given. But after that, if we properly use the tools, through promotion, that'll start to grow our membership. And that's kind of the next step of the letter. Our membership's key because as the membership grows, as grows our brand. So that's really what, when you get down to the meat of this, the whole plan, it's establishing a clear NHPA product that's marketable to the masses. You know what I mean? So we run as a member funded association, which is what we are, but we need to run this thing like a business. The members of this association are our stakeholders. So that's who we answer to. That's whose interest we're looking out for. But the more members we get, as grows our brand and as grows the ease in marketing. When we get into branding and marketing, the NHPA, the ACL logo. You got a question?
I'm just laughing at nothing. Go ahead.
The ACL, you get me started on these things, I can't hardly stop.
No. I'm not laughing at the question. I was just smiling at the question that somebody just called.
So that'll be fun. The ACL logo is a recognizable logo, right? But our
Sure.
NHPA one right now, mainstream. If I walk across the street to Walgreens there and I hold up an NHPA logo and an ACL logo, which one would they recognize? Probably the
Sure.
ACL logo.
Mm-hmm.
And that's our fault. We currently outside of the World Tournament don't offer a single option for T-shirts or cups or any of those basic tools that people can wear and promote our own product.
Mm-hmm.
So we get into distribution and mainstream recognition. That's the goal, is to get somebody to recognize us mainstream. And to do that, to grow the membership, kind of going back to promotion, you've got to make it fun again. The Horseshoe Tour is an innovative format. It makes it fun. I go to a tournament, I've thrown 50 shoes a game for 5 games for 20 years. That to
Sure.
me,
Yeah.
that I'm just competing against myself. It just isn't that fun anymore. So what new play formats can we bring in to make it more exciting for a new member? And how can we equal the playing field for those new members? You go into handicap league play, a whole different topic, but from top to bottom, we start at foundation, we get to mainstream recognition, and we get there through the path I've laid out in the middle. And I will say that these letters you're referencing, they're going out to regional directors, presidents, some delegates. But anybody that wants a copy of one, like I say, shoot me an email. I'll send you
Sure.
one. I don't. I'm not out here to. We're
Mm-hmm.
not trying to bash anybody. We're not trying to
No.
throw dirt on anybody who's been doing these jobs. But this is what I envision the future and progress of the sport looking like.
Mm-hmm. Question. Do you think the financial report should be available for the membership?
Absolutely. 100%. It is actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's in the bylaws that it's supposed to be available to the membership in the digest.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, I think it's every quarter. It should be released.
So I mean,
I don't even think we follow that. So
go back to bylaws.
100%.
100%. The You're going to get me started. You asked me
I
a
know
question.
that's why I started laughing, so
The
don't do it.
the the fin the finances the finances of any membership funded organization should be open to any member of that association at any time,
Hmm.
fully. And if there's questions on those should be met with answers. Not You shouldn't be asking those questions.
Sure.
The people in these roles, Brian Bull, I like Brian, great guy. I think he's learning, and he's improving on things. And I really like Brian. I think he's doing a fine job. For where he started. It's a hard thing to pick up, but if
Sure.
somebody comes to him with a question, as I have before, he should just answer that. It's
Hmm.
nothing to be offended about.
No,
It's
it's questioning,
that's
not
my money you're handling.
crossing. Right.
You know.
Right. Next, could it be helpful to make a tool for sponsorship collection, like, for example, a conversion prompt for them to read off while talking to businesses? And I'm not going to tell you who commented that
Yeah,
question.
I think I know. Uh, so you're talking about like a some dialogue. I think that's kind of the basis of the question. Something like a prompt, like a script per se. To give to potential sponsors.
Like, oh, I'm not interested. Okay, then what? Now this. Then what?
Yes,
Now
definitely,
this.
definitely, and that goes back to the. And were we to hire a sponsorship person, or even kind of anybody we put in those roles to obtain sponsorship, we need to train them. You don't just throw somebody in the McDonald's drive-through and not show them how to use the cash register. I mean,
Sure.
you know, it's great to be a likable person, but are you able to obtain sponsors? And obtaining sponsors over the years for my local club, and that's something I've been pretty successful with. And the people that have been successful with that, they can help us write that literature to help us gain those sponsors in the future. So, you know, you're kind of getting down to negotiations. Well, I'm not really interested. Well, what if I offered you this? But if you have something of clear value to offer your sponsor, that'll really help sell it in itself. The
Hmm.
value of what we're offering, we shouldn't have to sell that much. We should be able to. Here's the
Sure.
facts, and here's what that gets you. And it might take convincing from time to time. 90% of people, if you offer them something of value that's going to, because if I'm a sponsor, here's the
Hmm.
problem that people don't understand about sponsorships. You know, if I'm a sponsor and you ask me for $5,000, I don't want to know how to get $5,000 back out of that. I want to know how to get $50,000 out of what you just offered me.
Sure.
You know,
Hmm.
if you offer me, and I could probably find you something that'll get $1,000, like for in the host cities, Gigi's Cupcakes, for example. If
Hmm.
they put up a $250 sign at our world tournament behind the court, and 30 of our people go over there and spend money, they've made two or three times their money by the time they left those
Yeah,
people.
exactly.
you know but if I tell them that, yeah, you probably won't get your money back off it, well, why would they buy that? Why would they buy that,
Right.
right? So
Exactly. Exactly. Um, you know, it's always about meeting those small things. It's a smaller picture here, which is a different approach to what we've seen in the past. We're hitting, yes, we have a big picture in mind, but we have to start out, or I guess you have to start out at a small, you can't just boom flip a switch and it's
right.
built up. And I think that's kind of the mentality that we've had. I've served on the council before, and we want that quick fix, that instant fix, that instant hit. Like, how do we do it?
Well,
You can't do that. You got to take someone who's ready to start from the ground and build it up. So
I seen something to that point. I seen something on Facebook. It might have been yesterday, TikTok, Facebook, something. Steve
mhm,
Harvey was telling this story. Everybody knows who Steve Harvey is, but he
sure.
said, most people ask, how do I make $1 million? That's the
Hmm.
wrong question. You know, he said, what can you do that will get you $10? You know,
Hmm.
he said, just do that 10 more times. Then you've got $100. Once you find out what you did to get $100, do that 10 more times. Now at $1,000, you
Sure.
get the point. Now that you know what to do to get $1,000, do that 10 more times. You're at $10,000, do that 10 more times. You're at 100,000. Before you know it, you do what you did to get to $100,000. you might have to hire some people, you might have to modify a few things, but don't change what you were doing, because once you do
Sure.
what you did to get $100,000 10 more times, you'll be at your $1 million goal. But
Mm-hmm.
it's $1 million ideas are few and far between, and if I ever had one, we might not be sitting here talking. So because or if you
Sure.
ever had one either, so
Yeah. Um, you know, let's talk about the pressing question that everybody keeps throwing out there. And I've tried to avoid it, but I think we just need to hit on it and debunk the myth or debunk the people about you're too young to handle this position. Um, your campaign, your paper here, I'm just going to read off of it. It says, um, you say, I'd like everyone to think back for a moment. At some point, everyone reading this was my age, weren't you? Well, I know my youthful appearance can be confusing. I'm not as young as most people seem to think. If where my hairline weren't looked like
that's
it did
right. You said
today.
it right. It's
So I've
going
been
it's
trying to
going
hide
down.
mine. I'm
It's
trying to
it's
hide
getting
mine
thin, I'm
too.
telling you. I'm
And then
starting
you
to look like
say
the hairless wonder.
sure. And
The
then you say
hairless wonder.
2024 is my 19th season as an NHPA sanctioned member, and this is also my ninth year in the open men's division. I've been around a while and I've seen a lot in my 19 years as an NHPA sanctioned member. I grew up in the sport. I saw the good, the bad, and the pretty and the ugly. I've seen the good things and I've seen the bad things. I've seen a few corrupt things. Over the last almost 20 years, I've personally watched the tournament attendance sharply decline across the nation as membership declined with it, and watched the attendance of the world tournament decline too. You know, youth is not necessarily a bad thing. Youth means a lot of new things. Youth means higher energy, fresh ideas, a step forward and not backwards. So it's debunked. You're never too young. We have people that preach we need younger crowd in here. We have people that preach we need younger members involved. But it's those younger members who step up to, oh, sorry, I got really aggressive. Step up to the plate and want to take action that are criticized.
Right.
Why? Why is there a need for, yes, we need younger members, but oh no, don't do that. You're too young for that. How, why? What's, anyway, I guess I'm asking how, why?
It's really what you touched on. That's really strange, and you've been a victim of it as well. I, the answer is I don't really understand that. You grow up and you hear you can be anything you want. You can be president of the United States, but you know when you start to do that, I think part of that is it's the fear of losing the spot. They that's my spot. You can do anything you want as long as you don't take my spot. That's my spot there. And I think that's it. And a lot of people, for some reason, they've pitched that around. I've heard that a dozen times as I've been campaigning. You're too young. I'm not really that young. I am young, but I'm not. I'm young to someone who's 70,
You're young in age, but you're not young in your experience of horseshoes. Put
right?
it that
And
way.
horseshoes in life, life has a way of weeding some of that out. We we grew up pretty quickly, for personal reasons. We had to really take an active hand. I grew up on a farm, so
Sure.
when you grow up on a farm, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter if it's snowing and 0 or hot 110. You still have
Mm-hmm.
things you need to do. There's not any of that. We'll do that tomorrow. There's certain things you still have to do, and I grew up in churches too. I grew up riding around with my grandfather who was a pastor, and
Mm-hmm.
that teaches you a lot about dealing with people. And I think that those things, it gave me a pretty good work ethic. And what else it gave me is the way to talk to people. And I think that's what we're missing. A lot of times our communication isn't the best. And I've been guilty of that when I was younger. Impatience, you want something quicker than you should, but that's here
Mm-hmm.
or there. But I think people are intimidated by youth. I think that we want the young people involved, but we're kind of intimidated by that. But what I say to that is, you know if you were the if you were in one of these offices and you were there for 3 4 terms, 9 12 years, what could you possibly do in 15 than you can do in 12? What can you do in 12 that you can't do in 9? And that's why later in my letter, as we'll get to, I don't intend to stay in for 20 years. It's not something, I want us to set this up for success, get us on an upward trajectory, and get some of these younger people involved. Because, as the youth director, that's one thing I've always been adamant about is setting a good example for youth. And, that's another thing to consider. What better example do we set than yes, you can do anything, even though they're telling you you can't. Yes, you can take
Mm-hmm.
charge and make a change, and your voice can be heard.
Mm-hmm. Um, I want to read a little bit more to the people on this, about, youth, etc. But I want to,
My
before
back
I do
wouldn't feel
that,
like it does either if I
yeah,
was as young as I. Go
yeah.
ahead.
But youth, folks, age is a number. It's a very old cliche, but it's about willingness. It's about fresh vision. It's about moving forward. It's about not trying the same old things. What's that saying? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Right,
It's new things. So for those who want youth and younger people involved and want to see this thing grow, we have to embrace that. We have to take it in. We can't say yes, we need it, and then the next thing, oh no, don't, too young for that.
right,
But moving right along, your leading style, you hit on it a little bit, and I'm going to read a little bit of it. How you will lead. Most of the leading is, it was put to me like this. Um, I'm gonna lead you, but you're gonna stand in front of me, and if you turn around, I'm gonna shoot you. Don't you lead, and I will be behind you. As president, we need somebody who needs to be the forerunner and needs to be in the lead. And you talk about it here where you say, most of all the NHPA membership demands transparency to their members. Since you've been campaigning, you receive little criticism over not releasing a full plan of membership. This is a very simple explanation for this. My plan includes a multi-year tier and level sponsorship overhaul to gain those valuable sponsorship dollars we've been missing for so long. We must help the charters increase their membership. We must provide them with the tools to do this. It is easy for the council to sit back and preach the burden of membership falls solely on the charters, which is simply wrong. Think to yourself how many times in the last 20 years you've heard an NHP officer brag about a minor success that they have had, but pass the blame on something that they failed at. The NHPA president bears the success of the NHPA, but they must also bear the responsibility of the downfalls. How how are you going to take that in? If you win the election, how are you going to embrace that? Okay, if this thing goes down, it's my responsibility. How can you embrace responsibility when previous and generations before say, ah, just pass the buck?
right. Well, to touch on, I kind of take that in strides. The full plan, does include, it did include and does, and it's actually it grows, the more I get to think and the more I think further ahead. That's another reason. I've got the first several years, many years mapped out, but on top of that, could the wrong person get it? If we're some of my opponents to get this, he'd simply pick it apart. If anybody read it at all, that's another reason. As far as the full plan, I give snippets of this plan in this letter that you're reading from, and I think this gives people a sense of direction that I want to go. Uh, as far as the burden of leadership and the burden of responsibility, you know, that is how you were taught, and that's how many people were taught. I wasn't necessarily taught the same way because I came in under Gary Roberts. Uh, he was a little more responsible for the the association than maybe many officers in the past. But have you ever seen the diagram of you've got the boss and the leader. The boss is standing on the crate as the people pull it, and he's cracking the whip. And then the leader's got the rope and he's in the front. You've ever seen that
Yeah.
diagram?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
that's what you have to do. As the leader, you're in the front. I tell people that work with me all the time, I will take the bullets that that might kill you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
for example, if you were a vice president and something came to you that could just totally kill you and your credibility, I would take a lot of times the bullets that will kill a VP and their credibility won't kill a president. You know,
Mhm.
they might tear him down. You know, just like the president of the country, you know, he can do 1,000 things right. He does one thing wrong, that's all they care about. You know, that
Sure.
they don't care about that. But the president has to be able to say, you know, and they I don't even think the president should bear the successes of the association. You know, the president's only as strong as their team, but if they
Mhm.
fail to build their team and they fail to properly lead their team will fail. So if the
Sure.
team fails, the president fails. If the team succeeds, president just led them right. The team really done the bulk of it. But you know, a lot of times people get into these roles, and it's a pride thing. For me, it's not a pride thing. You know, I think I might have quoted. I don't remember. I guess it was Ronald Reagan said, "You can." I don't remember the quote, but you can go limitless places if you don't care who gets the credit. And that's true. You know, if you don't care who takes the credit for something, there's no limit to where you can go. And
Mhm.
what we've done poorly in the past is we've been so hung up on, I talked to somebody else today about this, you know, we've been so hung up on getting the credit that we've had people standing here with the pens open. Hey, how can we help? And we're like, you just can't, no way. You know, we've got to
Sure.
stop that. We've got people here willing to help. Let's let them
Mhm.
help. You know, everybody can help in some way that wants to help. Everybody.
I don't have any other questions on the live feed. I'm gonna take a moment here and read from our sponsors list to make this podcast possible. This is if you know anything about podcasting, there's I'm deterring now from the interview here. If you know anything about podcasting, folks, there are different types. There's voice podcasting, which is what I've been doing right now, and then there's also video podcasting, which is similar to this here, or people pre-record and do them on YouTube, or they'll do lives on YouTube. So this is I'm kind of looking at this to be kind of my new fix for that, and maybe drop this on a YouTube channel. Unfortunately, my I don't want to say forgot to hit record. So definitely we'll have to link this to the Facebook page, but even as much, I kind of like the flow of this. I like seeing the live comments, having people come in, because I always say on the podcast, if you have any questions, contact court reporter podcast at gmail.com. And I have had two emails. Thank you for Trisha, and thank you for Casey for your emails. Um, they haven't gone unnoticed. I haven't responded just because I've been so frustrated in this search for a new podcasting platform. But to that point, thank you to our sponsors. The first one is the Omega Horseshoe Company. Experience the drop forged difference with the Omega Horseshoe Company. Omega's drop forged horseshoes are tested up to 100 times stronger than cast made horseshoes and are backed by Omega's lifetime warranty. You can score more ringers with Gordon, Legend, Competition, or Cadet horseshoes at omegahorseshoes.com, where quantity discounts are automatic and all orders ship free in the United States. Podcast listeners, you can save 10% more with coupon code Dalton. Just enter DALTON during checkout at omegahorseshoes.com. Omega invites you to experience the dropped forge difference. And Seth told me earlier this week, on June 23rd, he says, good news, I received my first Dalton order. So, folks out there, definitely give Omega a try, a look at. They have a cadet horseshoe. It weighs, I think, 1 pound. It's very light, getting your youth started. And, that's something here, Ben, you can tie in with Ben here as the youth director, getting something we need to protect, youth, getting them those shoes that they can throw, because
Right.
we can all sign up a person, but they're not a player.
Right.
We want those players too.
Right.
Um, Tim Gilmore comments, teamwork makes the dream work. I agree. I agree. I agree. I agree.
No,
Next,
I've got several. I'm trying to think here. I think Gary had a bunch of the Gordons, but I've personally tried the Cadet. You know, the Cadet's a great shoe.
mhm,
The competition shoe, I really like the competition shoe. I've pitched it just a little bit, you know, in the off season. But, you
mhm.
know, to touch on the youth, you mentioned the youth. I really wanted to get this in here somewhere. You
Sure,
know,
now's a good
Seth
time.
Seth Ray, he has his opinions, and he's one of the most opinionated people in the world. But I love that about Seth is you never have to really wonder where Seth is. He'll just put it out there like he sees it. But I would argue that I don't know that there's anybody in the world in the last 10 years that's done more promotion to our youth and had more success of getting those youth in than Seth has. Seth has done an excellent job with that,
Mhm.
and no doubt that he appreciates the support of people that get the shoes and whatnot. But I I think that he's done a great job with the kids, and I hope he
Excellent.
continues. I hope we don't get discouraged. I hope he continues with that. And if there's anyone the
Excellent.
NHPA can help, we maybe we haven't in the past, but we would love to help with this effort.
Absolutely. And that's the thing about him is, you touch on it. Um, I don't want to say he doesn't take no for an answer, but if it doesn't work, you try a new avenue, and that's what he does.
Right?
And that's what I've seen happen. Back to more thing, and it's kind of funny, things that we need to protect. Um, these sponsors that I have, these are all things that are listed in your protection. Youth, horseshoes, and now the next one, the National Horseshoe Pitchers Association and Foundation, the NHPF. If you look, I don't see on the background, or if you've seen any of my posts on Facebook with our logo, all of our sponsors here, but the NHPF invites you to visit the Horseshoe Pitching Hall of Fame and Museum in Wentzville, Missouri, located at 100 Blue Stem Way. Upon arrival, you'll be greeted by the Dr. Jack Freeman Memorial Brick Plaza, where you can see bricks purchased by horseshoe pitching friends and family from across the world. After that, you can take a rest on the newly christened Joe Farron sitting bitch downstream, just down the way from the Brick Plaza. Go inside and tour the Hall of Fame and Museum. After that, pitch some horseshoes. Donations can be made to the NHPF at www.nhpf.info and are tax deductible. Donate today. And the next thing you talk about is the Quail Ridge Horseshoe Club. The Quail Ridge Horseshoe Club in Wentzville, Missouri houses the Horseshoe Pitching Hall of Fame and Museum. This is the world's largest horseshoe pitching club with over 200 members pitching in leagues and keeping the facilities alive and well. This 32 horseshoe court facility sits in the heart of Quail Ridge Park in Wentzville, Missouri. Stop by today and pitch some shoes after viewing the Hall of Fame and Museum. The quails are waiting. So, Ben, I don't have anything else from this episode. I don't see anything else people have commented. Tell us, anything else you want to just wrap this up and let us know something, I guess.
Well, I think we've touched on probably the 99% of what I want to talk about. A couple points that I do want to throw in there. I mentioned earlier the multiple terms, that we've seen people over the years state. I think there was even a proposal of term limits at some point that I don't know that it passed, but I don't know that somebody staying forever is a good thing. No doubt everybody, like I say, everybody can contribute something, but when does that kind of end? And if you can't do it in 3 terms, 4 terms, 5 terms, 6 terms, I mean, why go on? So that exact point is why I've made the statement in the newsline and in those letters, and I'll make it here. If 3 years from today, if I'm elected and you want to do an interview 3 years from today, if we still have zero sponsors and we haven't curbed the membership decline, if we haven't done those two things, I wouldn't run again because I'm confident enough in if we get in and do the boots on the ground work and the work we need to do, that we can turn those two things. And that's why I'm confident in that enough to say, and if we don't, you need someone else. Because if I can't do what if I came every time it was a reelection, I'm going to fix these two things, and they never got fixed. Why would I keep running? If I've proven that I can't do it. But if I were to get elected here, I'm so confident in those two things that I would make that statement that you know feel free to reach out to me. And I encourage everyone, like you say, if you like what you've heard, if you like what you see, if you like my sparkling personality, talk to your delegates and tell them yes, go vote for Ben Webb on August 4th. Now, if you don't like what you've seen, what you've heard, ask me. And at the end of the day, go to your delegates and tell them to vote Ben Webb on August 4th.
Exactly.
So, but I
True.
do appreciate the support of everyone who's supported me here. anything you want to know, I'm an open book. Contact me. We'll have a conversation about.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. Guys, until next time, kind of wrapping it up back towards the podcast side of things. Um, this is kind of the new wave, so be looking for this on these Zoom calls. And I wish everyone many ringers, lots of health, and some good luck on the courts. And as I say at every issue, if you've ever listened to my podcast, I hope to see you in court. Take care, guys.
Take it easy.